Choice 1, take them by surprise. Choice 2, play it cool. Play it cool? We can play it cool. I'm a pink flying narwhal in space. I was born cool.
Fantastic Arcade is the independent video game curation that exists as part of Fantastic Fest. One of the things that we do, we have a curation of usually about 20 independently made video games. These are games made by individuals or small teams. We don't select them based on that. We select them based on how weird and wonderful and unconventional they are. If you come to Fantastic Arcade, 8 of those games, we call them our spotlight games, we build custom old school arcade cabinets for them. So we try and get people playing games in a sort of not cloistered, hunkered over a table, but standing up, people watching in a kind of a more communal atmosphere. It works really great for multiplayer games. It works really great for games that have easy controls or that are just plain weird and fun to look at. So we really try and play into finding those specific sorts of games to put in the cabinets. It's not really they're not really in there because they're better than the rest of the curation. They're in there because they're the most arcadey of the curation. The rest of the games you can check out in one of the Alamo Drafthouse theaters. We've got them on laptops, and we've got panels from all of the creators of those games that are here with us. And then we also do tournaments with prizes. So it's a lot of fun.
And I understand that Sony's also one of y'all's sponsors.
Yeah, we got really lucky. The last couple of years, we've met the people at Sony. I think they're technically called Sony Third Party. We met a guy named Nick Sutner, who's been an incredible ally and has really kind of involved us in curating a whole other line of games that are also all independent games that Sony offers on PlayStation Network. So we get to go through and pick those games as well with Sony. So we get some really amazing stuff. And a lot of the games that are here this year on the Vitas are games that were previously features at Fantastic Arcade.
It must feel good that you might have played some role in getting more notoriety or fame for a game developer. How does that make you feel, and how do you think that changes the dynamic between game developers wanting to be at Fantastic Arcade?
Yeah, I don't know if Fantastic Arcade is really thought of as like an industry-type place where people get published. It's, I think, thought of by developers as a place to come hang out in a super friendly atmosphere, really laid back. You're not expected to hover over your game and demo it to people. Everybody comes and hangs out and meets each other. A lot of collaboration has happened from people coming down here. I think I'm the proudest about that, like developers that maybe hadn't met each other yet at other functions, meeting down here, collaborating on games. If we did help introduce any game developers to publishers, then I'm incredibly proud, but who can say?
Why is Austin, Texas, or why isn't Austin, Texas, unique for this particular event?
Austin, I feel, is like a lot of cities, like Toronto or some of the other cities that have really thriving indie scenes. What I think is unique about it is this sort of spirit of camaraderie here. We see a lot of collaboration between developers. I'm part of a group here called Juegos Rancheros. It was started by Brandon Boyer, who's the chairperson of the IGF, who also lives here. And what we do is it's kind of like an outreach, not just for developers to meet one another and talk about industry-type stuff, but for people who make games to show the games off to anybody who might be interested, not just in games, but in art in general, music, art, cinema, whatever. So we try and reach out to people who aren't, conventionally thought of as gamers. And then we also try and catch developers who have been kind of failed or cast off by the game industry here. We've had a lot of studios close their doors and lay people off. So one of the things that we've tried to do at Juegos Rancheros is catch them before they go back into the meat grinder and get them to make passion projects of, the game that they always had in the back of their head, that they a lot of times have the skills to make. They just need to meet that artist or, meet that musician or, figure out how to deal with health insurance and get it done. So.
Where are we right now? Kind of a broader scope here. Where are we right now in the indie game developing scene? It seems like Sony did really well for themselves by, jumping right in and taking, kind of by the horn. Explain to us, for people who don't know, they think, oh, they're all video games. Explain to us what's going on in reality.
Well, I mean, enter the state of indie development right now. I mean, we might be in some kind of weird golden age. I mean, I think it was spurred by lowering the barrier of entry to platforms. Not needing a publisher for specifically for some of the platforms. iOS kind of kicked it off, but we're seeing those barriers to entry lower. And of course, you do get like a tidal wave of crap as a result. But I think people are so hungry for good games and for new experiences, and there's so much kind of like bonding and networking going on between those developers who've been kind of let loose to pursue their own goals, that I think the good stuff really rises to the top really quickly. So I think it's great. I mean, I think we kind of live in a world now where if you're incredibly talented, you can get noticed. And if you don't get noticed, it just means you keep trying until you get there.
Last question, what do you think it is? Because a lot of these games, you see them, they're not the games we used to play on Nintendo, but they feel like they look like they could have been. Am I being naive in saying that it's because they grew up and started making games?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think especially when the indie kind of revolution started, you were seeing a lot of games that were games about games. And those were necessarily going to be games about game nostalgia, because people are talking about, when they first fell in love with games. I think also running parallel to that is the fact that the tradition, the AAA games industry got into this sort of arms race of audio video spectacle, without in a lot of ways really perfecting the craft of making games. And I think when you drop back to kind of a more simpler palette, what you're showing, what you're dealing with, you can concentrate on mechanics rather than bells and whistles. So I think we do see that, and necessarily like resources are limited when you're working on a small team, so you can't make GTA 5, but you can do something that can be really radical and really cutting edge and really progressive without doing that. So at the same time, I want everybody one day to be able to make a game that's just this absolute crazy scoped spectacle. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's really great. When you lay your hands on a really simple game that is just perfectly tuned, and those are the games that we're hunting for.